So we have a roll call.
Dr. Boothby,
Here.
Mr. Castile. Mr. Castile is not present. Dr. Davis.
Here.
Ms. Ellis. Ms. Ellis is not present. Mr. Garvey.
Here.
Ms. Holloway.
Here.
Mr. Mallorin. Mr. Mallorin is not present. Mr. Morris.
Here.
Ms. Orange Jones. Ms. Orange Jones is not present. Mr. Rock. Ms. Bochet. Here.
Okay. Next item, invocation and pledge. We have Melissa Carollo, who's going to help us with the invocation, and Sarah Kelly is going to help us with the pledge.
I can't stand.
Heavenly Father, we pray that you will give us your gift of knowledge, that we might always make the best decisions for the good of all the school children in Louisiana. We pray that you give us the wisdom to know and define our tasks, the strength to build and refine our educational goals, and the courage to persevere as necessary. We ask for your direction that we might make unselfish decisions for those we serve. We pray that all who are assembled here have a safe journey home. We thank you for all your past and future blessings. Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, ladies. I would note that those ladies were part of a great effort to do a wonderful charter school convention this past week. I think it was a success. We have the next item, please.
Next item is approval of the agenda.
Can we get a motion to approve? Ms. Bogan, second. Ms. Bochet? Do we have any questions or comments? Hearing none, do we have any objections to the motion? Hearing none, motion carries. Next item.
Next item is approval of the minutes from October 12th, 2022.
Can we get a motion to approve the minutes? Mr. Rock, second. Ms. Davis, Dr. Davis? Do we have any questions or comments? Hearing none, do we have any objections to the motion? Hearing none, motion carries. Next item.
Next item is approval of the minutes from the special call meeting on November 10th, 2022.
Can we get a motion to approve the minutes? Mr. Rock, second by Dr. Davis. Do we have any questions or comments? Hearing none, do we have any objection to the motion? Hearing none, motion carries. Next item.
Next item is consideration of the election of board officers for 2023.
Yes, ma'am.
Mr. Garvey, I'd like to make a motion that we defer this line item 4.1, consideration of election of board officers for 2023 to January of 2023.
Do we have a second to that motion? Mr. Morris? And that motion will keep the current officers in place until January. Do we have any questions or comments? Hearing none, do we have objections to the motion? Hearing none, no, the motion carries. Next item.
Next item is report by the State Superintendent of Education.
Superintendent?
Yeah, thank you. I'll be brief, but as we close out the calendar year, I just wanted to remind the board of a few of the things that I think have been really important over the course of the year. This is not going to be a lengthy list. I want to respect your time, but I do think as we think about closing out the calendar year, we should note some of the work that has happened. Our students in grades 3 through 8 on their LEAP assessments grew by 3% in ELA, 3% in math, and 2% in science on their mastery rates, their proficiency rates. We know that we have more work to do there, but certainly that is good progress from the previous year. We also know that 80% of Louisiana school systems improved their mastery rate in comparison to 2020, 2021. So we're thankful for that progress. Louisiana statewide school performance score returned to its pre-pandemic level. The majority of traditional public school systems improved their SPS since 2021, and many have exceeded their pre-pandemic SPS levels. Now, clearly, again, I say we know that we have a lot of work to do, but it is worth recognizing that statewide SPS has returned to its pre-pandemic level. Louisiana's fourth graders led the country in reading growth on the nation's report card. I've said many times it's not a jump for joy moment because we know we have work to do, but we do need to celebrate the energy that is present in our schools and the work that we're finding, the way in which we're teaching reading, and some of that is certainly beginning to work. And for Louisiana to be ranked #1 in the country on something positive is, again, worthy of recognition. So I'm really thankful for our teachers for their efforts there. This board approved the state's first accountability system for K-2, which will close a glaring gap in the accountability system and also focus additional resources and support and energy to those foundational elementary grades. This board approved unanimously a new set of social studies standards for our students. And so we're really excited about seeing those in our classrooms during next school year. With the legislature and this board together, there have been historic commitments made to early care and education to ensure that more families would qualify for options and that those seats would be higher quality options. So we're thankful for that. And then we continue to elevate the teacher voice. This is the third consecutive year where teachers have seen a pay raise. Certainly they deserve more. We also cut statewide teaching vacancies in half this year in comparison to last year. And we launched our first statewide teacher advisory council. So there are many things that we could talk about and discuss that are positives. There are certainly many things that we can talk about that still need refinement and improvement. But as we wrap out the year, I just wanted to acknowledge some of these accomplishments because it is what is needed for our teachers and our leaders and our parents to know that we appreciate and value the collaboration that they provide with us every day. So that's my brief report, Mr. President.
Thank you, Mr. Superintendent. If I could, I would add a perspective on the nation's report card, the NAEP test. If I understand it right, and correct me if I'm wrong, our rankings improved, I would say significantly, and we are now either in the low 40s or mid 40s, as opposed to our historic position of 48 or 49. Still have a lot of work to go, as you said, but I think that that's a significant improvement. We should note. Okay, next item.
Next item is report from BESE members regarding their statutory and legislative appointments. Anybody?
Yes, Ms. Holloway.
Thank you. I serve on the recruitment and retention task force, and the board was supposed to receive a full update last week at the joint meeting. However, the meeting was canceled, and because of that, I wanted to make sure everybody understood that there were next steps. And this is the task force voted in November on the report that will be submitted to the legislature, which includes progress updates on our state strategy. The presentation that was going to be delivered at the joint meeting will be shared in January, and I was assuming January 9th, I'm not sure, at the, I'm sorry, I didn't want to put you on the spot. You're the only one, yeah. I'm sorry, I think it's January 9th for the,
I'm not sure.
yeah. In addition, the annual state workforce snapshots, exit survey data, and vacancy updates will be shared at the January BESE meeting. And that's the update. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Holloway. Do we have any others? Dr. Davis.
The Special Education Advisory Panel met recently, not briefly, and had a very productive meeting. In particular, the group discussed what a small special education accountability work group had been working on regarding changes to the accountability system so that we can do a better job of incentivizing districts to serve special education students and also rewarding them
for all of the hard work that they do with those students that is not recognized by the accountability system right now. And so that group's report to SEEP was met with a lot of enthusiasm, and they make very good suggestions, and so we'll continue to move forward with that. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Davis. Do we have anyone else? Mr. Morris?
Yes, sir. I'd like to offer an update from the Computer Science Committee, the Computer Science Education Advisory Commission, which is chaired by Ms. Ashley
Yes.
Townsend. Thank you. The Computer Science Education Advisory Committee met on October 27th. The group discussed stakeholder feedback as well as framework to establish concepts and practices that will inform the future of the commission. The group made recommendations for the customization of the national K-12 computer science framework to meet the goals deemed crucial by Louisiana stakeholders. LDOE staff continuing to engage stakeholders across Louisiana through a series of listening sessions to be held during the month of January targeted toward K-12 educators, higher education, and alternative certification providers, and industry professionals. The commission will meet next on February 1 and consider updated reports on stakeholder feedback, as well as mechanisms for teacher certification, preparations to teach computer science. Dr. Brumley also had the opportunity to visit the STEM classroom during the computer science lesson for first graders during Louisiana's first statewide computer science education week last Monday. We saw students at Oak Grove Primary School engaged in coding, started to work with robotics. It's real exciting for me to be part of that, to see kindergartens actually coding. So we can reach students at every grade level with STEM education. So it's great to see that happening in our state. Also have an update from the special school district. The newly formed special school district board last met on November 1. The board provided an update on the superintendent search process. It's being led by SSA Consultants. 2 phases of stakeholder engagement are now complete. One-on-one interviews were held with campus teachers, staff, and administrators. And then last night, SSA Consultants facilitated a town hall meeting with stakeholders. Next steps include interviews with finalists and then on-site visits, followed by a hiring in January. And then lastly, wanted to provide an update from the BESE Advisory Council. The news here for me is that BESE is now 3 years old. So the contracts for the regional STEM centers are, an RFP has been issued. So we will close that out first quarter next year. I want to capture just a couple of highlights after 3 years of STEM development in our state. So the first one I have is a $1 million grant from the federal government to roll out Engineering is Elementary. This is a K-5 program curated by the Boston Museum of Science and supported by National Science Foundation. Also, LOSTEM was a sub-awardee with NASA on 2 Space Act grants. One with Texas Space Grant Consortium in Texas A&M, and the other with Georgia Tech Space Grant at Georgia Tech University. Another one of interest, they partnered with RoboNation and the Department of Defense to bring Sea Perch, which is an underwater robotics program, to Louisiana. With this program, we've secured over 500 robots to distribute throughout the regional STEM centers. This program will be highlighted at Fort Knox and Washington, D.C. at upcoming meetings. One more item, the LOSTEM funding was increased from $1 million in 2020 to $3 million in 2022. In addition, it's now embedded in the LOSTEM budget is now embedded within the Board of Regents. So this provides LOSTEM with stability and eliminates the need for continual annual budget requests. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Morris. Do we have anyone else? Okay. Do we need a vote? Do we have a motion?
No, we don't need a motion.
Okay, next item, please.
Next item is Academic Goals and Instructional Improvement Committee. Mr. Rock.
On behalf of that, we go, we have moved to approve motion 1 knowing that motion 14, 16 are noticed.
Okay, do we have a second for that motion? Ms. Holloway? Do we have any questions or comments? No cards? Okay. Did you want to?
Yes, so motion 17 and 18. Motion 17, Mr. Garvey, Ms. Holloway, Mr. Mallory, and Mr. Morris are opposed. Would you like to be reported as opposed to that? That would be your L standards on page 6.
Now, before we go to that, let me give some information to the board. If we do not have 6 votes for this to go forward, the legislature will not be able to hear it at their January, or in January. It will be delayed. I don't know how long it will be delayed. I'm not arguing one way or the other, but I know that I would like to see the legislature hear this issue. So although I was recorded as voting against it, and I'm against the standards, I am in favor of the legislature hearing this issue. So I'm going to vote in favor of sending this to the legislature. The other members who voted against.
Is this a motion? Oh, yeah, it's already in here, 17, motion 17, tab 7.1. So if that means if those individuals remain opposed, then it will not pass. So
And it will not go to the legislature for them to decide whether they want to give input or not. And we would still have an opportunity in January to voice an opinion against the standards again if we would like. So with that in mind, I'm going to not oppose this so we can move forward. With the other 2 BESE members that opposed it, your decision is your decision.
I'm happy to join Mr. Gardner.
So that motion, that item would carry, and the rest of the items, any questions from BESE members? About the motion?
Dr. Davis, 18, you were opposed. Would you like to be reported as opposed to the portal being open?
Yes.
Okay, but that item still carries also. So the whole agenda for that committee is listed today, carries. If I understand it right, correct?
Correct.
Okay, next item.
Next item, Administration and Finance Committee, Ms. Holloway.
On behalf of the Administration and Finance Committee, I move to approve motions 1 through 41.
Okay, do we have a second? Mr. Rock, thank you. Do we have any questions or comments from BESE members? Dr. Bovee?
I have a recusal on 7.2, motion 32, motion 33, and motion 34.
Okay, do we have any other recusals? Ms. Bocek? So those items will not be able to pass.
That's correct.
Okay, we can bring those back at the next meeting?
Unless you want.
Or they can be approved if they're emergency items. Yes, Ms. Davis, Dr. Davis.
And I have to recuse myself from motion 29.
Okay, is that the only recusal for 29?
Yes.
Okay, so the 29 can carry if the rest of the members vote in favor. No other objections. I don't see any other objections. With those objections noted, are there any other objections to approving the rest of the agenda on this item?
Can we just make sure that it's recusals, not objections? That's different, right?
Sorry,
That's
yes,
okay.
ma'am. Thank you for correcting me on that. Okay. Hearing none, the item passes with the noted recusals. And the items as noticed that did not pass.
Correct.
We have that captured in the minutes?
Yes.
Okay, next item, please.
Next item, Educator Effectiveness Committee, Dr. Davis.
Dr. Davis.
On behalf of the Educator Effectiveness Committee, I move to approve motions 1 through 17, noting that motion 6 is a notice of intent and pulling motion 7 as a reading.
Okay. Do we have a second for that? Mr. Morris, second. Thank you. We have a reading.
Yes, so motion 7, we can do this all together. Simply needs to be revised for the date change. It states that the emergency rule for Bulletin 130 will begin December 14th for a period of 180 days, and we just need to change that to the 20th since we had to revise our meeting date.
Do we have a motion to make that change? Dr. Bopey, we have a second. Mr. Rock? With that change noted, do we have any objections to the motion? Questions or comments? No objections? Hearing none, the motion carries. Next item.
Next item, School Innovation and Turnaround Committee. Forget about who, Mr. Morris.
I had that motion for it.
That's because you.
Let's, we need to get the whole thing on the table
Okay.
first. Mr. Morris?
Followed by Dr. Bo.
Okay, but your motion is?
No, she can't make it. She's got an abstention. That's why she has that.
Okay, so Mr. Morris, you're going to make a motion, and that is?
On behalf of the School Innovation and Turnaround Committee, I move to approve motions 1 through 18, noting that motions 17 and 18 are notices of intent.
Okay, can we get a second to that motion? Mr. Rock, maybe? Yes, sir, thank you. Okay, Ms. Bopey, you need to.
Those are the charter approvals. I don't know if you recall, you were
Yes,
saying.
so for a few of them, there was an abstention, so. I do want to move that we add a requirement to return to BESE for item number 3 on that agenda. So members, that's on 7.4. You'll see in the tab 7.4. And this was a charter school that was conditionally approved.
Okay, and I believe the superintendent was in discussions about this earlier. Do you understand what the motion is? Do you want to describe it as you understand it?
It's
Yeah.
item 3, Ms. Davis, the Community School for Apprenticeship Learning.
Let's get our motion straight, if we could. Your understanding of the motion is that when this plan is revised, it's going to come back to BESE?
Yeah, so just a note here, this is the charter school that did not meet all of the indicators as required, or not as required, but all of the indicators from the third-party evaluator. I would call out, this also is, in many ways, the reason charter school law exists is to fill specific needs. These are a group of students that we are hearing from our local sheriffs, our district attorneys, and our juvenile judges that they need additional options to better serve these children. And so the initial application called for immediate opening with up to 2,000 students. And so we put in place an additional year prior to the opening, and we reduced that enrollment by 75% down to only 500 students. And so as I appreciate what's being asked, and we are fine with this, is that whenever revisions to that particular plan are made over the course of the next year, that ultimately we bring that back to the board to see that plan.
Yes, sir. I'm sorry, we had the motion from Ms. Bopey. I don't think got a second on her amendment. Ms. Holloway seconds. Okay, we have a speaker on this, I believe. Caroline Romer.
Good morning, Caroline Romer, Executive Director, Louisiana Association of Public Charter Schools. Thank you, Ms. Bovee, for the motion, and we would agree with that. You started this morning with a prayer about wisdom. Last week, I left wisdom at home for a minute, and so I missed the opportunity to be at the table to speak around LAPCS's position related to applications and that approval process. And so I wanted to be sure we were on the record today. Generally, historically, the association has not supported conditional approvals. We know that the third-party evaluation process is one by which it doesn't require by any policy or law that an applicant meet all of those standards. It gives a lot of authority to the superintendent to take a look at the application and determine what makes sense for students. And we agree with what's been said here. This is a need. There's an urgent need to serve these students, and it's being offered by an operator that has a very long track record of serving students in Louisiana. In fact, the longest-serving charter school in the state is CSAL with 25 years. And as I've thought about that, and as our team has thought about that conditional approval, our lack of comments at the table, we do recognize, again, that there are times where you may want to take a look and give an applicant the opportunity to get that application right before just sending it back into the queue to redo the whole thing. So we do understand that, but we also recognize you've set a process up with standards. And when you start thinking about which standards matter, which ones, you're willing to condition, that's a concern for us. So we look forward to working with the superintendent and his team on if we're going to do conditionals, under what circumstances will we be doing that? And is it the mission? Is it the urgency? Is it the operator's experience? Those are things I think that we should consider, but we fully support the idea that charters are there to innovate and to offer options for students who may not have quality options in education. So we appreciate that as we hear it, you will have an opportunity as a board to see that application, and again, what conditions have been met, what changes have been made, so you can give the final approval without taking them back through the entire process, with the recognition, again, that you have a population of students that are severely underserved educationally, and this is an opportunity to do right by those students. I'm happy to answer questions, but the bottom line is LAPCS was not at the table last week speaking to conditional approvals, and I wanted to be on the record that generally that is not something we support, but we do look forward to working with you all on what that might look like in the future. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Ms. Romer. Okay, we have a motion on the floor. Do we have any questions or comments from BESE members? Hearing none.
I'd like to go on the record as opposing motions 7, 8, 14, 15, and 17.
Okay. Does staff have those numbers written down? Do you need to repeat it? Okay, with that note, are there any other objections? Hearing none, then motion carries. Next item.
Next item, consideration of revisions to Bulletin 111, Louisiana District and State Accountability System regarding school growth as it relates to the accountability system. We have no recommendation, so we need some type of motion.
Mr. Morris, do you have a motion on this?
Yes, sir, I'd like to offer a motion, board, approve the, policy to reflect that beginning with the 22-23 school year, the 23 SPS, any school which earns the equivalent of a letter grade on K-12 progress index and would otherwise have an F overall letter grade should be reported as a D for overall letter grade.
Okay, Ms. Bogan, second that motion. Okay, do we have any questions or comments from BESE members? Oh,
Yeah, so basically,
The one we talked about?
yeah, basically, what we had, no, this is not the one we had talked about converting. This addressed the concern that, one of the takeaways, one of the learnings from the BESE accountability work group, among others, was that the current system, in a few cases, actually recognizes that our educators have achieved the maximum score possible for student growth with an A. But yet the current system scores the school with an F for an overall score. So the thought here is that it's the wrong message to our educators, not recognizing appropriately the work they're doing. And also it recognizes the fact that there's a considerable amount of work left to do with regard to the current accountability system. So the thought here is that that's inappropriate, and we want to make this adjustment.
Thank you, Mr. Morris. Dr. Davis.
I just have one question around, maybe it's a technical one, but it says that their letter grade would be changed. Is their overall SPS score being changed as well, or just the letter grade that is reported on the report card? Because I didn't think about this when we were talking about it last week, but if we're changing their SPS score, that also affects district scores because they're averages of their school scores. And so I'm just curious about whether or not this is merely kind of a cosmetic change that is appearing on the report card, that the SPS is staying the same as an F, but the letter grade is changing to a D, because it seems to me like this is just changing the letter grade, and so I just want to be clear.
As it's written, in the document in front of me, it says 2023 SPS.
Right, but it says, but that's not what you're changing in this. It says any school which learns the equivalent of the A would otherwise, it would be reported as a D for its overall letter grade. Does language need to be added that says and SPS score? Or, because when we were discussing it, I do remember we talked about bringing it up to the lowest D, I believe is how you described it, but I just want to make sure that this language actually does that.
I think there are a couple of other questions similar to that, which is, I think why Ms. Holloway was suggesting that we defer on this issue and bring it back in January when those details can be worked out. Am I correct, Ms. Holloway?
Yes, that is correct.
Okay.
Is there a second to that?
Well, so I want to apologize to Ms. Holloway because I had understood otherwise, so apologize if there was a misunderstanding there.
Mr. Morris, would you like to second that motion to bring it back in January? What?
Anybody?
We need a second for the motion to amend the current motion.
Personally, I'm happy to vote on that today. I apologize again for the misunderstanding.
Okay, do we otherwise have a second to the motion?
I think we also need clarification on Dr. Davis's concern as well.
And I have questions.
Go ahead.
Well,
Do we
she's
have-
on deck.
Ms. Davis, Dr. Davis?
Well, I just was going to say that I think that it might be pretty simple to fix that problem by just adding report shall be reported as a D for its overall letter grade and SPS score, right? You're just adding two words and then that changes it, right?
Well, we have a motion from Ms. Holloway to defer. And before we go to your issue, we need to see if we have a second. Make this complicated, I can step down from the chair and move into Ms. Holloway's chair, let her take over, or we just do that verbally. Can you take over the chair for a second?
Sure.
I would like to second your motion.
Yeah, okay.
So for the record, can I take the chair back now?
Yeah.
Okay.
Ms. Holloway.
Okay, we can vote on that motion unless we have, Ms. Davis, Dr. Davis, you had something that you wanted to add. Or do you want to vote on this motion first and then come back to yours?
Well,
Yes, ma'am. Ms. Wojcik.
well, we can discuss it regardless of which motion's up.
Correct.
Which really is the same. I don't see where this is a major issue. We have some other language, I think, in the accountability, and I'm trying to remember, somebody might have to help me, if a school is in early intervention required in a specific subgroup, they can't get an A, or they can lose a B, but it doesn't change their school. So I think all this motion does is the same thing. We're saying that the letter grade for the school becomes a B. I would not change any of the computations, the assessment index, the actual SPS score itself, because that's got to be bundled in with everything. So to me, and if I remember that correctly, it's time for me to go yes or no, we have something similar in policy that says if the school is in UIR for a specific subgroup, they can't be an A school, even though their SPS is an A. They're labeled as a B, but it doesn't change the score itself. So to me, this motion as it's originally set up does kind of the same thing. And I don't see where that, we already have a precedent for it, so I don't see where it's any major issue. The SPS would not change a letter grade.
Okay, Mr. Morris, do you have comments?
Yeah, my understanding is that we would need 6 votes to pass this, not the majority of them present. And since it looks like we won't have 6 votes today to pass it, then my preference would be to defer it till January, where we actually have the potential to get 6 votes to pass.
Okay, so Mr. Morris, that means you would be voting in favor of deferral? Okay. Any other questions from other BESE members?
I have questions that maybe if I ask, it's
Go ahead.
something that could be.
Yes.
My question would be, how many years have these schools been Fs? I don't know if we ever received that info, Dr. Browning. And so, and you don't have to answer now, maybe it's just something that can be recorded.
That could be brought to us in January.
Yes,
How many
and
schools
also,
have
would that, well, how many years have these schools been Fs? And also, will these students these schools lose federal funds if we arbitrarily change their letter grade? Is there a question on that?
Superintendent, can you bring that information in January?
Yeah, we're happy to bring that.
Okay. And then, did these schools receive growth points when their students were all actually progressing? So,
Another question is whether the feds would even allow this maneuver, you might
Just
say,
stop
to
it.
happen. Okay.
okay, good, thank you. I don't
Okay.
need answers. We can discuss later, it's just thought.
Can you submit without it being a policy? Like, can you just call them and ask them? That's just a question, I don't know. Like, could you even see if it's possible? That's what I'm saying.
I would imagine you can get informal feedback from the feds. Okay, we have a motion on the floor. Do we have any objections to the motion? Hearing none, that motion carries. Next item.
That concludes your
Move to adjourn. We are adjourned. Mr. Rock, thumbs up. Drive safely.